Welcome to NTD Newsroom. I'm Don Ma. President Trump en route to Corpus Christi ahead of Tuesday's heated primary, and how the president says negotiations with Iran are going amid escalations in the Gulf. A rare testimony by a former president, Bill Clinton, is facing lawmakers as part of an investigation into convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein. What lawmakers are trying to find out, and what are they saying about the deposition? Nuclear talks between the U.S. and Iran conclude without a deal in place. What's next as speculation grows over potential strikes? Netflix shares jumping today after the company drops its bid to acquire Warner Bros. Discovery. The studio's board now saying it received a better offer from Paramount. NASA announced Friday the agency is increasing its cadence of missions under the Artemis program to achieve the national objective of returning American astronauts to the moon and establishing an enduring presence.
This is NTD Newsroom, live from our global headquarters in New York City.
Good afternoon, and thank you for joining us today. A key inflation indicator moved higher in January, which may signal rising consumer prices in the months ahead. The Producer Price Index, or PPI, rose 0.5% in January. That's up from 0.4% in December. That's according to data released today by the Bureau of Labor Statistics. The PPI measures the prices businesses pay for goods and services. Those costs are often passed on to consumers. Economists had forecast a 0.3% rise. Former President Bill Clinton is testifying today before members of Congress. This comes as part of the House Oversight Committee's Epstein probe, and a day after former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton testified. Here's committee member Anna Paulina Luna giving an update roughly 1 hour into the deposition.
President Clinton is being very cooperative. I do want to point out, because I have seen some back and forth in regards to some of the Democrats trying to call in not credible witnesses, and I won't get into the nature of what I've asked the president specifically until after the deposition is over. But to be clear, we've had two individuals, one that accuses President Clinton of unfounded allegations of there being sex tapes, etc., by the name of Sarah Ransom. And there was an individual under the name of Katie Johnson that also had unfounded allegations of rape against our sitting president of the United States, both being claims that did not have evidence for grounds of that.
The deposition is behind closed doors, but videos will be made public soon. This would mark the first time in over 40 years that a sitting or former president is testifying before members of Congress. The Clintons have maintained that they had no personal knowledge or any criminal activities by convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein or his co-conspirator Ghislaine Maxwell. The former first couple initially refused to testify after being subpoenaed, but they agreed after lawmakers began contempt of Congress proceedings. The committee expects today's deposition to be even longer than yesterday's, which lasted roughly 6 hours. And now lawmakers who were inside Bill Clinton's closed-door deposition in the Epstein investigation are now stepping out to speak with reporters. Let's take a look at what they're saying.
The Democrats, who are the minority, had an hour. We will break for 10 minutes, then the majority will go back for our second hour, which will be the third total hour. That might be the halfway point. After that, that's yet to be determined. But just wanted to mention something, because I know there's a lot of obsession about President Trump from the media, a lot of curiosity about President Trump from the media. I want to make a statement, because they'll probably not mention this when they come out here. Ranking Member Garcia asked President Clinton, quote, should President Trump be called to answer questions from this committee? And President Clinton said, that's for you to decide. And the president went on to say that the president, Trump, has never said anything to me to make me think he was involved, and he meant with Epstein. So I know there's a lot of curiosity about President Trump. I thought that was an interesting thing that President Clinton said. So I'll let the Democrats have the podium, and they can answer your questions. But we'll come back at the conclusion, the majority will, and we'll answer all your questions. Thank you.
Okay, we'll have more on that later. Stay tuned. Next, President Trump jetting off to Corpus Christi to tout his energy agenda ahead of Texas' hotly contested Tuesday primary. And the president giving an update on Iran negotiations as the U.S. builds up its forces in the Middle East. We now go live to NTD's Washington correspondent Mari Otsu at the White House. Mari, good afternoon.
Hey, Don, good afternoon. That's right. President Trump just moments ago saying that he's not happy with Iran negotiations. Essentially, the regime has not agreed to not developing a nuclear weapon. The president also saying that he thinks the negotiations are not done in good conscience and good faith. And it comes as today, U.S. Ambassador to Israel, Mike Huckabee, tells those in the U.S. Embassy in Israel to leave today, quote, if they want to. And it also comes as Vice President J.D. Vance is meeting with Oman's foreign minister here at the White House to talk Iran negotiations. And yesterday, a third round of talks wrapped up in Geneva between the U.S. and Iran on the U.S. side. Those were led by Special Envoy Steve Witkoff and President Trump's son-in-law, Jared Kushner. And let's take a look at the president's comments on his way out. Take a look.
Well, we haven't made a final decision. We're not exactly happy with the way they're negotiating. They cannot have nuclear weapons, and we're not thrilled with the way they're negotiating. It'd be wonderful if they'd negotiate really in good conscience, good faith and conscience, but they are not getting there. So far, when you look at look, we have the greatest military anywhere in the world. There's nothing close. I'd love not to use it, but sometimes you have to.
Meanwhile, Don, President Trump is suggesting what he's calling a, quote, friendly takeover of Cuba. As the president has repeatedly said since Maduro's ouster that communist Cuba is in its last legs, is in, quote, big trouble. And it has since been crippled by severe oil shortages as they had heavily depended on Venezuela's oil supply. President Trump's also threatened, in the meantime, tariffs on any nation supplying oil to Cuba. And Secretary of State Marco Rubio has also said that the Trump administration would welcome regime change on the island. Take a look.
The Cuban government is talking with us. They're in a big deal of trouble, as you know. They have no money. They have no anything right now. But they're talking with us. And maybe we'll have a friendly takeover of Cuba. We could very well end up having a friendly takeover of Cuba. What about the post? After many, many years.
And Don, just before departing the White House en route to Corpus Christi, where he'll be touting his energy agenda, President Trump posted a flurry of endorsements to Truth Social, north of 25 endorsements of Texas representatives for these upcoming Tuesday primaries for the midterms. And he hasn't yet, though, endorsed a candidate for Senate in the race, although Senator John Cornyn, one of those running in the hotly contested GOP race on Tuesday, is aboard Air Force One and traveling with the president today. Back to you.
Okay, Mari, thank you. The State Department says Secretary Marco Rubio will travel to Israel early next week. Rubio's visit may suggest a longer timeline for any potential strike. Meanwhile, a confidential report from the International Atomic Energy Agency raised new concerns. It said Iran has not allowed inspectors to access sensitive nuclear sites, saying those sites were heavily bombed during a 12-day war launched by Israel last June. The agency says it cannot confirm Iran's claim that it stopped uranium enrichment after U.S. and Israeli strikes. Meanwhile, the U.S. ambassador to Israel told embassy staff that if they want to leave Israel amid the possibility of a strike on Iran, they should do so today. Joining us now to discuss is Gerard Filitti, Middle East Affairs analyst and attorney specializing in international law. So, Gerard, good afternoon. By your assessment, what is the likelihood of a U.S. attack on Iran, given where we stand right now on negotiations?
Negotiations have not progressed sufficiently to look like we are close to a deal, or even remotely so, even though they have been going on for a while. Not just formal negotiations, mind you, but back-channel discussions that have been taking place for many weeks now. So I think that as time goes on, we are increasingly likely to be engaging Iran militarily, at least to some extent. We have the balance of forces that we need in theater, and the longer they stay there, the more likely it is that since Iran is not coming to the table in good faith, that they will be used.
So just speaking generally, what is your view on whether Iran will permanently dismantle its nuclear program and its nuclear facilities?
Iran has no incentive or no reason to dismantle its nuclear program. It believes that it is an existential threat to the existence of the Islamic Republic if it gives up its nuclear ambitions. So it has continued and will continue developing nuclear weapons, nuclear proliferation, and ballistic missiles, as well as other technologies of war, despite what it may be saying publicly, because this is what Iran needs in order to survive. It needs nuclear weapons. It wants to become a nuclear power, and there is no incentive for it short of full recognition by the rest of the world of its power and ambitions that it would stop. Even then, Iran is a country that needs to, for its own safety, for its own sake, in order to control the people, it needs to maintain the strongest military it can, and that means nuclear weapons.
So, Gerard, I have a clip here of Steve Witkoff talking about negotiations. Let's just take a look here.
I know that we have red lines here from the U.S. How about over with Iran?
The president asked me that this morning, and I don't want to use the word frustrated. It's almost because he understands he's got plenty of alternatives. But it's curious. He's curious as to why they haven't, I don't want to use the word capitulated, but why they haven't capitulated. Why under this sort of pressure with the amount of sea power, naval power that we have over there, why they haven't come to us and said, we profess that we don't want a weapon, so here's what we're prepared to do. And yet it's hard to sort of get them to that place.
So, Gerard, Witkoff talks about tremendous U.S. pressure here. Iran has seen what the U.S. military can do. So talk to us about the leverage here. Does the U.S. have enough leverage to, you said Iran does not want to agree, but given the circumstances, given the leverage here, is it possible to get Iran to agree to the U.S.'s terms?
The problem with Iran agreeing to the terms is there needs to be some enforcement mechanism. Remember, we had a nuclear deal that was negotiated before, and that went nowhere ultimately because Iran was able to hide what it was doing, that it was enriching uranium beyond a point, that it was continuing its weapons program even though it was saying it wouldn't. So the ability to verify that any sort of deal would actually take effect and would be meaningful, that's the challenge here, especially if Iran is refusing to hand over all of its nuclear materials, all of its uranium, all of its enriched uranium to the United States. So the problem is one of basic trust. The U.S. has plenty of military leverage to bring to the table, but without Iran absolutely capitulating both in its nuclear production and its missiles production and its sponsorship of foreign terrorism, it's very hard to see why it would agree to anything, why the United States would agree to anything. Iran has been a danger to the U.S. and to the world for decades now, and finally we have a president that's standing up to them, and bluntly so militarily. We have the forces that we need, and it really is beyond imagination that Iran would rather see its people die and risk war, risk regional war, instead of doing a sensible thing and give up terrorism and nuclear weapons.
So we played a clip earlier of President Trump saying sometimes you just have to use the military, the best military in the world. And the Iranian leader said that a U.S. attack on Iran would stoke a regional war. How are you looking at this?
I very much doubt that a regional war would be stoked. We know that Iran is likely to fire missiles if there is an attack by the United States, that Iran would attempt to retaliate broadly, hitting American assets in Qatar, in Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, Iraq, even bases in Israel. We know that Israel has been targeted repeatedly by Iran. But I think what we have seen is consultation by the United States with our allies and with other countries in the region. And I don't expect that anyone will jump in to either support Iran or to oppose the U.S. in striking Iran. Ultimately, Iran may throw a military temper tantrum, if you will, but the outcome of that will be preordained because the United States can very capably defeat whatever it is that Iran has to throw at anyone in the region.
Okay, so I'm not an expert here, but here's what I'm worried about. Is there a risk of escalation? Because if the U.S. strikes Iran and then Iran strikes U.S. military bases, does that risk another response from the U.S.?
Look, I think that ultimately what we will see is the United States has a set of objectives, and that will be triggered by whatever decision President Trump makes, whether it is to cripple the command and control structure of Iran, whether it will be broader and take out more military facilities, or whether it will be to decapitate the entire regime. However Iran responds, the United States will continue with that goal. So if Iran does continue or escalate and try to escalate a war, I think you will see America decapitating the leadership of Iran and allowing the people who have already been out on the streets protesting and demanding reform, that it will allow the people of Iran to take over their government. And that's the best way to bring about a resolution to this crisis.
Okay, Gerard, just one final thing. The ambassador to Israel, U.S. ambassador to Israel, telling the staff to leave. Does that make the situation look like things are not doing so well?
Well, that's a precautionary measure whenever you have that rhetoric of war, and Iran is threatening to launch missiles at Israel. So there is that very real risk that Iran might do something, even if the United States does not. So it is a very sensible move, and it follows what we have seen American personnel leaving other countries in the Middle East, in the region, for their safety. But all of this can be seen as an escalation, and that the United States is taking the final steps necessary to safeguard our people before we take military action in Iran.
Okay, Gerard, good to hear your insight. Thank you so much for speaking with us.
Thank you, Don.
AI company Anthropic has rejected the Pentagon's request to allow unrestricted use of its Claude model. Coming up, experts weighing in on social media addiction as a landmark trial examines whether tech companies that deliberately design platforms to hook young users. More news after this break. Don't go away.
Whispered across generations, a hidden secret unveils the essence of longevity and vitality, a timeless legend regarding energy and wonder. Rooted in ancient health wisdom, we proudly introduce Pure Tang Black Ginseng, a 100% natural organic energy drink made from premium 6-year-old Korean ginseng. It takes 2,260 days and nights from seed to growth, undergoing a meticulous 9-step process of steaming and drying. Black ginseng reaches its full potency, enriched with ginsenoside RG3 and enhanced absorption efficiency. No sugar, no caffeine, no artificial ingredients. Experience the pure natural power of Pure Tang Black Ginseng. Nourish your body, strengthen your immunity, and boost your energy. To order Pure Tang Black Ginseng, please visit puretang.com.
There's cultures that have been lost, but this culture hasn't been. The artist is showing us our sense of who we are, where we came from. You look at his hat. His hat is knitted probably by a man, because a man traditionally knitted the hats. That hat tells you the story of who this person is, what his place in the culture is, the animals around him. Everything's all contained in the messages in the hat. And the tool that he's carrying over his shoulder. This is a centuries-old tool that has been able to rework the mountains. Those traditions are invaluable, and if we don't honor those traditions, then we're rootless. The artist is showing us the value of maintaining our culture and respecting our culture.
The Justice Department is suing 5 more states: Utah, Oklahoma, Kentucky, West Virginia, and New Jersey. It accuses them of refusing to provide full voter registration lists as requested under the Civil Rights Act of 1960. Here's more.
The DOJ said the Attorney General has broad authority to demand statewide voter rolls for inspection and analysis to check for improper registrations. The department's Civil Rights Division has now filed complaints against 29 states and the District of Columbia over voter roll access. According to the lawsuit, Utah officials cited privacy concerns and provided only a redacted public version of the list. Similar allegations were made against the other 4 states. Attorney General Pam Bondi said accurate voter rolls are essential to election integrity. Officials in the 5 states did not respond to requests for comment.
30 more people have been indicted for their alleged involvement in a protest that took place inside a church in St. Paul, Minnesota. Attorney General Pam Bondi announced the indictments on X. Bondi said 25 of the 30 have been arrested and more arrests would take place throughout the day. The Attorney General posted, quote, "You cannot attack a house of worship. If you do so, you cannot hide from us. We will find you, arrest you, and prosecute you." The Justice Department says around 40 people stormed the church last month after information suggested that one of the church's pastors worked for ICE. The indictments follow the arrest of former CNN anchor Don Lemon and local activist Nikema Levy Armstrong. Both have pleaded not guilty to federal civil rights charges. Denver's mayor is barring federal immigration agents from city property. Mayor Mike Johnston announced the move yesterday through an executive order. Here's more.
It bans federal immigration officers from operating on city property and directs Denver police and sheriff's deputies to document federal agents with body cameras. The order also requires local law enforcement to provide life-saving aid to anyone harmed by federal officers. It also orders them to intervene in instances of force that could cause death or serious bodily injury. Johnston says the city is seeking to protect civil liberties, not provoke conflict. A Department of Homeland Security spokesperson called the order legally illiterate and accused Johnston of continuing to release pedophiles, rapists, murderers, and more onto the streets.
AI company Anthropic has rejected the Pentagon's request to allow unrestricted use of its Claude AI model. The company cited concerns the technology could be used for mass domestic surveillance or fully autonomous weapons. Anthropic CEO called those applications, quote, "simply outside the bounds of what today's technology can safely and reliably do." The CEO also alleged that the Department of War had threatened to invoke the Defense Production Act to compel Anthropic to allow unrestricted use of its technology. He said the company hopes to continue supporting the military with the requested safeguards in place. A Pentagon spokesperson clarified that the department had no intention of using AI for mass domestic surveillance or fully autonomous weapons, saying the request was limited to lawful uses. And if you've ever ordered dinner or last-minute items for delivery, you've probably been asked to include a tip. Several apps say 100% of that money goes to drivers. Regulators allege Walmart failed to keep that promise on multiple occasions. The Federal Trade Commission says Walmart will pay $100 million to settle a pay dispute. The FTC and 11 states allege it misled Spark delivery drivers about base pay and tips. It also says the retailer falsely claimed the entirety of customers' tips would go to those workers. The commission is requiring the chain to implement an earnings verification program for drivers. It says Walmart also is committed to increased transparency and accuracy around compensation. The bidding war has come to an end. Shares of Netflix surging more than 9% this morning after the company said it's walking away from its bid to take over Warner Brothers. Meanwhile, Paramount Global also climbing about 10% after winning the race for some of the world's most prized television, film, and assets. Here are the details.
Netflix said on Thursday that it was backing out of its bid to buy Warner Brothers Discovery's streaming and studio assets. It comes shortly after Warner Brothers said a revised $31 per share offer from Paramount Skydance was superior to its existing deal with Netflix. In a statement, Netflix said, quote, "At the price required to match Paramount Skydance's latest offer, the deal is no longer financially attractive, so we are declining to match the Paramount Skydance bid." Netflix, which wanted to buy the Warner Brothers streaming and studio businesses, agreed in December to pay $27.75 a share, saying the offer, along with a planned spin-off of Warner Brothers cable assets, would deliver a greater shareholder value. Paramount, meanwhile, has argued it has a clearer path to U.S. regulatory approval. On Thursday, Paramount said it welcomed Warner Brothers' board's unanimous reaffirmation that its bid represents the stronger offer.
Now to the social media addiction trial unfolding in Los Angeles. Jurors yesterday hearing directly from the plaintiff, the 20-year-old testifying how her social media affected her mental health. NTD's Christina Corona tells us more from the courthouse.
Jurors heard from the 20-year-old plaintiff, Kaylee G.M., and her testimony started off by her attorney showing pictures from her childhood, such as photos from her previous birthday parties, pictures with her parents, and horseback riding. But the testimony quickly shifted to her social media use. Kaylee testified she started watching YouTube just 6 years old. By the age of 8, she had created her own account, entering a random age in her profile. She posted videos and closely tracked likes and subscribers. She told jurors she had about 10 YouTube accounts and posted more than 100 videos by the time she was 10. She said she even created additional accounts and asked family members to create accounts to boost her likes, comments, and subscribers. She also testified that around that same time, she had about 15 Instagram accounts. She said she used outside apps where she would like other people's photos and in return receive more likes on her main account. When asked whether she became addicted, Kaylee testified she would sneak onto her phone in the middle of the night and at school to constantly check likes, comments, and followers. She told jurors, "Whenever I got a bunch of likes, I was really happy, and when I didn't, I felt insecure, like I looked ugly. It messed with my self-worth." She testified that even when she was bullied online, she continued using the apps because being off social media felt worse than the bullying. Kaylee also said that when her mom took her phone away, she became anxious and depressed, and at times threatened to harm herself, telling jurors, "I wanted it back because I felt like a huge part of me was missing." She also testified that from a young age, she frequently used beauty filters and at one point had edited almost all of her photos. She told jurors she relied on filters to feel better about herself and has since been diagnosed with body dysmorphia. Kaylee is expected to testify through Thursday afternoon and possibly into Friday. The YouTube CEO is expected to testify sometime next week. Reporting from downtown Los Angeles, Christina Corona, NTD News.
NASA is expanding the scope of its Artemis moon program. A new mission will involve a spacecraft docking test in Earth's orbit. It will take place before astronauts land on the moon for the first time in more than 50 years. The changes come as China moves closer to its goal of a manned moon landing by 2030. The new Artemis mission is planned for next year. NASA now plans to land astronauts on the moon during Artemis 4 in 2028. NASA also canceled an effort to upgrade its Space Launch System rocket. Instead, the space agency will focus on increasing that rocket's production and flight rate, which has been slow compared to newer rockets. Elon Musk's SpaceX and Jeff Bezos' Blue Origin are each developing an astronaut lunar lander for the program. Over 300 social media accounts have been found targeting President Trump, but also Japanese Prime Minister Sanae Takaichi, human rights organizations, and other countries to push pro-Chinese Communist Party narratives. We discuss this after the break. Don't go away.
This is an urgent appeal from Save the Children.
I saw war, bombing, shooting. I'm worried for my future.
Чую вибухи. Не знаю. І не ходжу в школу.
Conflict is raging across the world, and millions of children's lives are being devastated by war, hunger, disease, and poverty. We urgently need your help to reach children in crisis. Please call or go online to give just $10 a month, only 33 cents a day. We need 1,000 new monthly donors this month to help children in crisis around the world. You can help us provide food, essentials, and life-saving medical care to children in the most need.
ما نحسن ننام طاوة من كتر القصف هيك حياتنا الله يصطبر فيهم بس.
In the darkest times, children suffer the most. You can help by calling right now and giving just $10 a month. Please call or go online now. Your donation today can help secure additional grants, which can multiply the impact of your support up to 10 times. And when you call with your credit card, we will send you the Save the Children tote bag as a thank you for your support.
وقتی قدم جمع خاطر
ما كلك قصفدي تندات المملكة ما دنجي في شنغان ديستن ما مالي خالو بكر معني مالي خمو أمد داغرين.
Your small monthly donation of just $10 could be the reason a child in crisis survives. Show them they're not alone. Please call or go online to givetosave.org to help save lives.
This is how I keep my joints happy.
Omega XL is a powerful natural supplement backed by 40 years of clinical research. Take control of your pain, like Cynthia Bailey.
My knees in particular started giving me pain issues all the way back to my modeling days, from just running through airports, photo shoots. After taking Omega XL, I really started to notice how less stiff I was, especially my knees and my hip. Has Omega XL changed my life? Yes. I barely notice my joint pain anymore. Now I'm like literally sprinting through the airports. My secret is Omega XL.
Pick up the phone and call now to get this exclusive TV offer. Buy one Omega XL and we'll send you a second bottle absolutely free. You'll also get a free bottle of Vitamin XL D3. Buy one, get two free. A total value of over $115, all for just $49.95. You save more than 55% and shipping is free. Backed by a money-back guarantee and is not available in stores. Operators are standing by, so call now.
The UK's Green Party won a by-election today, taking control of a parliamentary seat from British Prime Minister Keir Starmer's ruling Labour Party. Hannah Spencer was declared the winner in Gorton and Denton, a constituency in the Greater Manchester area of northwest England. The Reform UK Party came in second. Labour finished the election in third place. Spencer will become the Greens' fifth representative in the 650-seat House of Commons. Her election win marks a shift in an area the Labour Party has long controlled. Starmer described his party's loss very devastating. The U.S. is offering on-site passport services in the West Bank for the first time. The American Embassy in Jerusalem says the move is part of an effort to reach all Americans abroad. U.S. citizens in the area are reacting.
We're here to report the birth of our daughter, who was born a couple years ago, and to get a social security number for her. And it's really not just an issue of convenience, but it really is helpful to be recognized that there are so many American citizens who are living here, and to help us to be able to get these services that we need.
This was great. Bureaucracy in general is not so fun to have to deal with, and to have it come to you is just so much easier and more pleasant.
It was amazing.
It was
really
quick.
amazing.
It was quick. They were super efficient. You can see that the members of the embassy do this a lot. So it was a well-oiled machine.
Russian officials say a local ceasefire is in effect near the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant in southeastern Ukraine. The official said the pause in fighting will allow repairs to an external power line. Russian forces have largely controlled Europe's biggest nuclear power plant since the start of the war in 2022. The facility isn't producing electricity and relies on external power to keep its nuclear material cool and avoid a meltdown. Russia and Ukraine have frequently accused each other of risking a catastrophic incident at the plant by conducting military operations nearby. Control over the facility has become a key issue in U.S.-led talks to end the war. Negotiations are expected to continue in Geneva next month. Pakistan is declaring open war on the Taliban in neighboring Afghanistan. Pakistan says almost 300 Taliban fighters are dead after launching strikes on Afghanistan overnight. The Taliban is already responding. NTD's international correspondent Arian Pazdar has more.
Afghanistan is entering yet another war. Pakistan says it killed over 270 Taliban fighters in Afghanistan, launching airstrikes on over 20 different locations. Pakistani officials are declaring open war, saying they have no more patience to deal with the Taliban terrorists in Afghanistan. Footage shows cars completely destroyed after the strikes. Hospitals in multiple Afghan cities now overflowing as staff is trying to help the wounded.
My wife's hand was injured badly in that incident, and my nephew was injured too, and both are now lying in the hospital in critical condition.
Pakistan has been plagued by terrorist attacks from the Pakistani branch of the Taliban. That's why Pakistan previously already struck Taliban targets in neighboring Afghanistan. But Friday's airstrikes and the declaration of open war are taking things to another level.
The oppressive Afghan Taliban regime has to make a clear choice.
Pakistan's military says the Taliban has to choose between supporting its branch in Pakistan or supporting the Pakistani government. The spokesperson also says that its attacks on the over 20 locations destroyed more than 100 tanks, among other crucial military equipment.
All these targets were very carefully selected based on intelligence. They are military targets, and great care was exercised so that there is no civilian collateral damage.
The Taliban now saying it already launched retaliatory strikes, which killed over 50 Pakistani soldiers. NTD can't independently verify the number of casualties reported from either side. Despite launching retaliatory strikes, the Taliban say they're willing to find a peaceful solution, blaming Pakistan for allegedly not being willing to negotiate. Residents in Kabul now dealing with the aftermath of the steep escalation in tensions between the two sides.
Many people were injured by broken glass and had to be treated until late at night. It was a very terrifying incident, and everyone is extremely distressed because of these problems.
President Trump weighing in as well, saying he supports the Pakistani side in the conflict. Arian Pastar, NTD News.
Former President Bill Clinton is testifying today before members of Congress. This comes as part of the House Oversight Committee's Epstein probe, and a day after former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton testified. Here's committee member Anna Paulina Luna giving an update roughly 1 hour into the deposition.
President Clinton is being very cooperative. I do want to point out, because I have seen some back and forth in regards to some of the Democrats trying to call in not credible witnesses, and I won't get into the nature of what I've asked the president specifically until after the deposition is over. But to be clear, we've had two individuals, one that accuses President Clinton of unfounded allegations of there being sex tapes, etc., by the name of Sarah Ransom. And there was an individual under the name of Katie Johnson that also had unfounded allegations of rape against our sitting president of the United States, both being claims that did not have evidence for grounds of that.
The deposition is behind closed doors, but videos will be made public soon. This would mark the first time in over 40 years that a sitting or former president is testifying before members of Congress. The Clintons have maintained that they had no personal knowledge of any criminal activities by convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein or his co-conspirator Ghislaine Maxwell. The former first couple initially refused to testify after being subpoenaed, but they agreed after lawmakers began contempt of Congress proceedings. The committee expects today's deposition to be even longer than yesterday's, which lasted roughly 6 hours.
Today, we hope to be able to do as we did yesterday and continue to bring some of the most powerful people in the world in to answer questions. Again, no one's accusing anyone of any wrongdoing, but I think the American people have a lot of questions, and our House Oversight Committee is committed to getting answers. We're committed to transparency. Ms. Clinton deferred a lot of questions to her husband today. There were at least a dozen times when she said, "You'll have to ask my husband that. I can't answer that." So we already had a big portfolio of questions for him, and that increased yesterday.
We're interested in today is a serious deposition. We have real questions that deserve serious answers from former President Clinton, and we have said from day one that Democrats want to talk to anyone, whether they are a Republican or a Democrat, no matter how powerful they are, whatever position that they've been in. If anyone has information about Jeffrey Epstein, and certainly the horror that he inflicted on so many women and children, we want to hear from them.
The former president says in his opening statement, quote, "Though my brief acquaintance with Epstein ended years before his crimes came to light, and though I never witnessed during or our limited interactions any indication of what was truly going on, I am here to offer what little I know so that it might prevent anything like this from ever happening again." Clinton adds, quote, "I saw nothing and I did nothing wrong." Lawmakers who were inside Bill Clinton's closed-door deposition in the Epstein investigation are now stepping out to speak with reporters. Let's take a look at what they're saying.
Just wanted to mention something because I know there's a lot of obsession about President Trump from the media, a lot of curiosity about President Trump from the media. I want to make a statement because they'll probably not mention this when they come out here. Ranking Member Garcia asked President Clinton, quote, should President Trump be called to answer questions from this committee? And President Clinton said, that's for you to decide. And the president went on to say that the president, Trump, has never said anything to me to make me think he was involved, and he meant with Epstein. So just, I know there's a lot of curiosity about President Trump. I thought that was an interesting thing that President Clinton said. So I'll let the Democrats have the podium and they can answer your questions. But we'll come back at the conclusion, the majority will, and we'll answer all your questions. Thank you.
President Clinton, in his opening, made the most important statement: no one is above the law. And he made it clear that it was perfectly appropriate for the committee to call him and ask him tough questions about what happened. He also made it clear that it was totally inappropriate for this committee to call Secretary Clinton. That's why personally I didn't even show up yesterday. I thought it was outrageous the way they treated Secretary Clinton. She has nothing to do with this. But President Clinton answered the questions. I think you'll see when we have the deposition that our side that put the survivors first. We had our members, our lawyers ask questions to get the basic facts and asked difficult questions, and the president answered. And it was civil, and he set the tone, in my view, for the precedent that President Trump needs to now come and answer these questions, that Howard Lutnick needs to answer these questions, that other people part of the Epstein class who've been in these files need to come before this committee and ask these questions. And then that's the only way we're going to have accountability and healing. Now I'll turn it over to our ranking member Garcia.
I'm just going to introduce folks. I'll make some comments at the end. I'm going to introduce other members. First we have is Congresswoman Emily Randall.
Thank you. As you heard, President Clinton, in his opening statement, said that America was built on the idea that no person is above the law, even presidents, especially presidents. And the Democratic members of the Oversight Committee feel the same. No one is above the law, and anyone with knowledge of Jeffrey Epstein's crimes should absolutely come before the committee to give testimony about what they saw or did. Who was there? Who was involved? Survivors like Charlene Richard, who was my State of the Union guest, deserve the accountability and the truth. The American people deserve accountability and truth. That means a complete release of the files and cooperation, not obstruction, from Pam Bondi. And it means testimony on the record from anyone with information, whether that's Howard Lutnick, Bill Gates, Larry Summers, and yes, even and especially Donald Trump.
Congressman Stansbury.
All right. Well, good afternoon, everyone. I am Congresswoman Melanie Stansbury, and I am deeply proud to represent New Mexico's 1st Congressional District, where our state has taken action where the federal government has failed. We have reopened an investigation through our state attorney general into the crimes committed by Jeffrey Epstein and his associates in New Mexico, as well as passed the first state-level truth commission in this case ever passed in the history of the United States. We will be working very closely to make sure that the state is able to make a full accounting of the crimes in New Mexico. With regards to today's deposition, I want to be clear at the outset that President Clinton, as of today, has not been accused of a crime. There are not public files available that accuse him of a crime, whereas there are publicly available documents that do allege a crime of President Trump. But it is very well established that President Clinton had a relationship with Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell, and we are treating this investigation extraordinarily seriously. And when you see the recorded deposition, you will see that we asked all of the hard questions centering the survivors, making sure that we get to the bottom of where there are discrepancies in the record, and understanding how not only the crimes that Jeffrey Epstein committed could go on, but why there was a culture that surrounded him wherein the rich and powerful turned a blind eye. And with that, I turn it back to our ranking member.
And that was Democratic lawmakers speaking to the public amid the deposition of former President Bill Clinton relating to the Jeffrey Epstein files, saying that nobody is above the law and that there has been no allegations of crime with regard to former President Bill Clinton. Now, moving on, a Chinese influence operation tied to Beijing's police appeared to blown its own cover after using ChatGPT as part of the campaign. OpenAI says the now banned user was targeting critics of the Chinese Communist Party, both at home and abroad. A report released Thursday, the company says the actor tried to smear campaigns, plan them, harass dissidents, and silence foreign political leaders who speak out against Beijing. Here's more on that.
Investigators say the user attempted to orchestrate a coordinated smear campaign against Japan's Prime Minister Sanae Takaichi. That's after she criticized the CCP's human rights abuses in Inner Mongolia back in October. Prompts asked the chatbot to create negative social media posts, fake accounts posing as foreign dissidents, to pressure Japanese lawmakers. The activity didn't stop there. OpenAI says the same actor targeted other Chinese dissidents and Beijing critics. This included efforts to mass report activists like Hu Bo on X and flood the platform with fake profiles using his name and image. Investigators described the campaign as coordinated and well-resourced. It's been designed to apply social and psychological pressure. They say the tactics range from harassment and falsified violations to attempts to disrupt critics' live streams. OpenAI notes the tactics are similar to an earlier China-linked influence campaign known as Spamiflage. But this time, generative AI was part of Beijing's playbook.
Hundreds of social media accounts linked to China are targeting President Trump. Joining us to discuss is Rex Lee, cybersecurity advisor at MySmartPrivacy. He has advised major corporations and government agencies on matters of cybersecurity and tech espionage by the Chinese regime. So, Rex, good to have you here. Now, the Foundation for Defense of Democracies has found over 330 accounts. Not just targeting Trump, but also Japanese Prime Minister Sanae Takaichi, human rights organizations, and other countries, and all this to push pro-Chinese Communist Party narratives. So, by your expertise, are these operations effective at all when it comes to its influence or swaying public views?
Yes. Actually, I was an advisor for the U.S. Congress and Senate for the Facebook Cambridge Analytica scandal involving Mark Zuckerberg. And like through that scandal, these types of platforms, including AI-driven platforms like OpenAI, can be they can be weaponized for political purposes through the behavioral data that the apps are collecting on the individuals. Then in that case, targeted political ads were pushed out to people trying to influence them to vote for either Hillary Clinton or Donald Trump at the time. Well, that same technology has been weaponized and now it's infused with AI. So if you mix that in with China's 50-cent army, for example, then they can use automated bots. So you can set up 130 accounts, but automated bots can then push that content out to 1 billion plus people in milliseconds across multiple social media platforms.
So is there any way for users to discern that these are influence operations by China?
No, it's very hard for especially average people. I mean, people in the community, the cybersecurity community like myself, we can see it, but really they come in like targeted ads. So what a lot of people, you have to really understand how the architecture for a targeted ad works, because it's the same technology that pushes this information out to billions of people. Google invented what's called an ad tech AI quantum algorithmic control platform for targeted advertising back in 2013, which they later integrated with AI. So when everybody asks me, so if information's taken off this device or from a social media account, or I have access to a social media account in this case, then the same technology that can send me a targeted ad anywhere in the world, even in my home, 24 hours a day, that same technology can be utilized to spread mis and disinformation through the core. But instead of getting a targeted ad, like in the Facebook Cambridge Analytica scandal, I get a political message or even a political ad. You don't know who these PACs are either. So a PAC could be set up to send political messaging, and they can actually buy ad time on Facebook, TikTok, even the new US TikTok USDS company set up by Oracle, any platform. So you can actually do it through ads and pay for the propaganda to be spread. And we've seen this in real time. Just a couple of, about 2 or 3 weeks ago, Meta was in the news for ignoring the threats about Chinese scam ads. So you can do it through either like a Chinese bot army influence program, or you can go as far as to spend money on ads and reach everybody with the same targeted advertising technology that supports these social media platforms.
So if you're saying that you can simply just pay for these ads, I mean, in your view, should technology companies play a bigger role in protecting Americans from these influence campaigns?
Well, you got to look at them. They're not technology companies. You know, Meta, TikTok, they're data brokers who build surveillance and data mining platforms to compete in the information trafficking industry driven by the data-driven targeted advertising business models that are rooted in surveillance capitalism. It's their business to conduct surveillance, data mining on you, figure out what your behavioral data patterns are, and then sell it to targeted advertisers around the world. The system, you know, when weaponized through a civil military fusion program, the system now is weaponized for military purposes. And that happens. That all these tech companies doing business in China have to give their IP and all their information to the Chinese government to do business there. Well, through China's civil military fusion program, they just simply weaponize it. Instead of sending a targeted ad for tennis shoes to you, they send propaganda that looks like an advertisement to you.
So you said earlier that these operations are rather effective. I mean, what is the point then? What's the point of these operations? Is it to shape policy outcomes that favor Beijing?
Well, I'll give you an example, because this is a great analysis for what happened with Facebook Cambridge Analytica and why it's so dangerous. They already know that somebody who's going to vote for Trump, who's a MAGA, is going to vote for Trump. Period. Same thing like back in 2016. You weren't going to change anybody's mind on the Democratic Party side to vote for Hillary Clinton. But they can target this and partition the targeted ads all the way down to the county or city level geographically through geofence technology. So that means that what they want to do is that 20% of those independent voters that can move the needles in counties that Trump or Hillary Clinton could win in, or any, Trump and Biden, let's fast forward it, and including in the Japanese elections, they can take those independent voters and manipulate only a small portion of people to move the needle to where they win either that one county or another. So that's what they're doing. That's what happened with Facebook Cambridge Analytica. They were only looking to move the needles with independents in key counties that were basically a coin flip. Yes, so they're very effective, by the way. They work very well.
Okay, let me just ask you one last thing. How do we stop it?
Well, that's where we're going to need changes in the law. First of all, anybody on a computer, a smartphone, a tablet PC, a server that's connected by Android, iOS, and Windows is connected to this ad tech AI quantum algorithmic control platform. When militarized, you can do a lot of horrifying things with it, as we're seeing in real time. So there needs to be some new laws regarding the information trafficking industry and targeted advertising to decouple critical infrastructure from it, unless people want to volunteer for it, instead of being coerced through the contract of adhesion that supports their device, meaning if they don't want to participate in targeted advertising or surveillance and data mining, they can simply disagree with the contract without being penalized, such as not being able to use the products and services you pay for. So we're actually being forced into this ecosystem. There's no way out when you're coerced into it, unless they give you the alternative to turn down the contract, say, I don't want to participate in targeted advertising and surveillance and data mining. Then you should be able to say no to that, and then your device is decoupled from that platform.
So to your point that laws need to be changed, I just want to make a final note here, food for thought for our lawmakers, that this problem essentially does not exist within China. Perhaps it's unique to the United States. I'm not saying definitively, but in China, there is no such thing as foreign influence, right? All right, I'll just leave it there for today. Thank you so much for speaking with us today, Rex.
Okay, bye.
This fall, Italy will host a competition celebrating one of its most iconic and beloved desserts. Competitors will vie for the title in two categories, original and creative. NTD's Andrew Thomas has more on the recipe and its history.
Egg yolks, sugar, mascarpone, the basic ingredients for tiramisu. The dessert dates back to the 19th century around the town of Treviso, with the final version taking shape in 1970 at Le Becquerie. Le Becquerie chef Manuel Gobo says tiramisu gets its character from an orchestra of flavors.
Coffee gives a bitter taste, mascarpone gives an acidic taste, then there's sugar and egg, which give a sweet taste, together with the ladyfingers, and cocoa adds a little more bitterness. All these flavors together create the unmistakable taste of tiramisu. Each one plays its part.
Le Becquerie owner Paolo Lae says making the dessert is a lengthy, detailed process.
It's like creating a great wine, I would say, because you have to bring together many small elements that form a circle. So attention in the kitchen during preparation, attention and care in selecting the raw ingredients, and in turn, those who produce the raw ingredients. The right amount of time to let the dessert rest.
Lae describes the dessert's taste in terms of nostalgia.
The beaten egg, the sugar, the cream, the coffee, the biscuit, all these elements that remind us, perhaps those of us who are a little older, perhaps today's children don't remember them, but they remember their grandmothers, their mothers, these maternal figures who fill their hearts. So these flavors are always associated with memories. Taste is a memory.
The Tiramisu World Cup is planned for October. 240 participants from Europe, the Americas, and Asia are expected to compete. Andrew Thomas, NTD News.
American thought leaders host Yanni Kellek discusses the horrors of forced organ harvesting, a topic he's been following for 20 years. Don't go away.
That truly matters for each and every one of us. This is what you've been waiting for. See it at least once in your lifetime. Shen Yun. Get tickets now. ShenYun.com.
Disasters are not a matter of if, but when. And they're happening in communities like ours more often.
Even before disaster strikes, hunger is already a crisis in America. But a disaster tests the very heart of who we are as a community. Food is scarce. But it's in these moments of crisis that our strength shines through. Because as neighbors, we lead the way forward. Please join with Feeding America, and let's be there for families in crisis. Call or go online to givetofeedingamerica.org. Just $19 a month, only 63 cents a day. Rushes food, water, and urgent supplies into communities just like yours.
They called us immediately and said, what can we do?
It's those partnerships that come together and respond to recovery.
Feeding America works with local food banks to get immediate relief to families as they recover, and we stay for as long as it takes, because disasters don't wait, and neither do we.
They delivered a truckload of food to us to undergird what we had.
Every box of food, every bottle of water, shows the power of neighbors being there for each other. When we work together, we are never alone. Call or donate online at givetofeedingamerica.org. Your gift will be so much more than a donation. It will be a filling meal for a child, comfort for a family in crisis.
We need to be there for our community for the next 40 years, just like we were for the last 40 years. And that's helping people build back in a way that is as strong as possible.
Please call or go online and give right now. With your monthly gift, we'll send you this exclusive canvas bag as a reminder of the hope you are delivering.
We're definitely here during the storm, and we're going to be here long after the storm.
But we need you.